Jennifer, thank you so much for joining me. How are you today?
I am wonderful. It's lovely to be here and really appreciate the opportunity to share my experience.
It's absolutely wonderful. So listen, before we get into the detail of all the amazing things you've done, what did you want to be when you were growing up?
Very good question. I think I've always been a future-ready innovator in some ways, in that I was always looking to enhance and to grow. And I've always enjoyed making a difference for people and always been the person that's looking for how can we make it better. Even as a young child, I was looking at how can I interact with others, how can I teach others, and that ultimately led to a career in technology sales and teaching and building partnerships within technology as my first career, if you will.
So tell me, I mean, I've said it in the introduction, I've called you a future-ready innovator. You've said now you were always, what is a future-ready innovator?
It's somebody that is open to change, that is curious to learn new perspectives, learn from others, and it's a person who's brave enough to actually take some chances, step out of the box, explore, and go into the unknown. And in today's world, with the speed of change and accelerating technology and everything happening around us, I find that more and more people really gravitate to how can I be innovative and how can I change and go with the flow. That to me is a future-ready innovator.
And how do you become a future-ready innovator? How did you become a future-ready innovator?
For me, I think it was through taking chances and being open to opportunities, always seeking perspective from others and being very open to feedback and hence adapting. Through my career in technology sales, I was always looking for that opportunity to take on a new challenge. And that led me from Silicon Valley to Europe, where I was based in Belgium building a new strategy for a technology company. Then on to the UK, where I lived in Brighton, building the go-to-market across EMEA for a technology company, and ultimately to Oslo, Norway, where I led international growth for Tandberg video conferencing. And that was through to the point of launching Tandberg US, which was all just a great experience. And for me, living in 3 countries other than the one in which I had grown up over the course of six, 7 years was really a baptism in innovation and future readiness. I love learning new perspectives and cultures and being able to be agile and adapt to not only fit in, but to succeed in different areas was a great way of learning by doing, which I find in today's world is so important, that there isn't a recipe book that says, follow these 5 steps and you'll be innovative. You have to just jump in and try and learn.
Fantastic. So I'm hearing that, at least I think I'm hearing that anybody can become a future-ready innovator. Is that right?
Absolutely, absolutely. It just simply takes being willing to let go, kind of embrace the fact that there isn't a recipe book or a clear map of steps, and have people around you that you're open to sharing and exploring with. Be open to failing, because sometimes things don't work out, and many times that's what we learn the most from. I often encourage people to put up a big sticky on their PC. What is the worst thing that can happen? If I try this, what is the very worst? Chances are, when you really think about it, it's not nearly so bad as what you might have expected.
But do you find it challenging, though, to have people think in that open way and be that brave and be that curious? I mean, surely you obviously have that innate in your personality, but it might not be innate in other people's personalities. And I know you say there isn't a 5-step way of doing it, but if I'm not very open and I'm not curious and I'm not brave, I mean, what can I do? How can I help myself?
Very, very good question. It really starts with taking a small step. And in the consulting work that I do and through the Executive Growth Alliance, where we bring together communities of people that want to learn how to be future ready, we often say it starts with one tiny step. Just thinking about your average day or your average work week. Challenge yourself to do something differently. Have coffee instead of tea. Take the bus instead of the train. Go a little bit different direction, because it's almost like muscle memory, that as people we get stuck in our little silo, we get comfortable in what we're doing, and unless we push ourselves to do something small, we never really learn that muscle action of how to adapt and be agile.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's really good advice. Thank you. So you mentioned the Executive Growth Alliance. Tell me a little bit more about that. What is that? Why was it set up? What's the objectives?
Yes, it's in essence a global community of open, curious, brave people that work together in small groups, peer groups, to explore and learn and really support each other as they endeavor to do things differently. As they have successes, they celebrate together, but more importantly, as they have failures, they come back together to regroup, relook at things, and move forward. And actually, the way that has come about is number one, I am very much a connector. I mean, I'm an explorer and an innovator, and always trying to drive change. But I love doing that by bringing people together. And in Silicon Valley, so after I was in Europe, I went back to Silicon Valley, founded Next Step, which is a service business. And we're a team of 40 consultants that work together in a very holistic approach to help companies and people drive change. We had the opportunity in the mid 2000s, 2009, to work with Adobe in their transformation from Creative Suites to Creative Cloud, and ultimately to becoming really one of the largest digital marketing service companies instead of a software company. And through that experience, I and our team and the Adobe team learned by doing. We would come to a challenge of how do we get partners to adapt a whole new pricing model? Well, let's get 5 to 10 people together and explore that. Let's try it in 5 to 10 different ways, see which one worked, come back together, try it again. So this idea of peers working together to solve challenges is something that I've done and we've done in Silicon Valley informally for many, many years. Fast forward to about 3 years ago, a number of our clients in business transformation services in Europe were asking a lot of the same questions. How do we shift model? How do we actually get people to use our digital app? And so for me, it was a very clear opportunity to say, we have 5 companies, all in the transportation sector, worried about how to get people to use an app. We need to bring you together and help and facilitate you learning and working together. That has grown very organically from those 5 companies in Oslo, Norway in transportation to today a global footprint where we have communities or chapters in Norway, in the UK, in the Benelux, in South Africa, in Latin America, Silicon Valley, of course, and Asia Pac. And they are working together to support one another in new initiatives, overcoming challenges around some pretty systemic things such as transportation, environment, agriculture, health, services, etc.
That's fantastic. It's invaluable to bring those very different experiences together. I think that's amazing. How can somebody be involved in that? How can a leader become involved? Is it possible to, or do you invite them in?
It is, yes and yes. Anyone that believes they are open, curious, and brave can raise their hand, can contact me, go to executivegrowthalliance.com, apply. And it is a qualification, because in order for peer learning to really work effectively, everyone has to be committed to learning, has to be open and committed to sharing, being vulnerable, learning by doing. And so we qualify. Are they those characteristics? If so, then they are invited into what we call executive growth forums, which are bi-monthly gatherings in which one member out of 14, one member brings a case. Here's what I'm trying to achieve in my business. Here's why I'm trying to do this. Here's what I've learned so far. Here's where I'm stuck. And here's what I need from you all. And at the end of that half-day forum, not only that one member, but the others who have shared similar challenges, they all leave with action items. What they're going to do back in their real-world business to apply what they learned in this forum, so that when they come back together in 6 to 8 weeks, they share that learning.
That's amazing. That's really fantastic. I think that's a wonderful way to share great knowledge. You've said so much. I've got so many questions. So I'm going to go a little bit back and forth here. You mentioned Adobe, and they're a recognized leader. And I think if I've understood it, and you're going to add to this, I'm sure, I'm trying to understand the keys to the success of what they've achieved. And I think you said that they tried, they just got on with it. That must be a major key. But what else would you say were the keys to their success?
It really starts with a vision. And while every company and every transformation is different, and this is not the recipe book, I will say there are some certain ingredients that go into success, which is start with a vision. In 2009, before many companies even thought about as a service, reoccurring revenue, or apps, it was just as the iPhone was coming out in 2009. Shantanu, the CEO of Adobe, recognized that the traditional model of perpetual software license sold every 18 months as a new release was really not sustainable. And his vision, as he announced to Wall Street and internally, was in 5 years, we will be a services company. We will no longer be selling software. The second thing that is an important ingredient is the leader with the vision, and everyone in the organization has to be willing to empower others in the company to explore, to learn, to fail, to talk, to collaborate in order to achieve that vision. And Shantanu was asked, so this is great, you're going to be a services company in 5 years. How are you going to do that? And his answer was very clear. I have no idea, but I have 10 executives. I have outside resources. I have others around me, and I'm empowering them to work together, explore, talk to customers, and figure this out. And that talking to customers is so important, and it was such a critical part of the Adobe story. I mean, as we were shifting the model and determining pricing level and how is this subscription actually rolled out, it was every day checking in with customers, partners, monitoring what was driving adoption, and going back and rethinking. The terminology today of agile and pivoting kind of becomes buzzwords, but if you take it out of the context of software, a transformation really requires agility. Let's look at, is this working? No. Okay, let's pivot. Let's do something different. Let's not continue down a path that's not working. Let's recognize it, and let's shift, and let's change. And I think the other fourth thing that really goes into a successful transformation after customers' empowerment and vision is persistence. It is a marathon. It is not a sprint. I mean, it was 5 years before Adobe really became recognized as a service company, before customers and partners raise their hand saying, wow, this is good. Now I see why you were trying to do this. And before we really saw that tick of the stock price and the valuation. And now, I mean, we're 10 years after that beginning, and I look back and I see that, you know, Adobe stock was $20 per share when we started. Today it was, I think, listed at $347 per share.
Yes, I wish I'd bought some. So expensive now. Brilliant. I mean, people wouldn't have seen, but I was nodding my head and I mean, wonderful. Listening to your customers, wonderful. Realizing that it's a marathon and not a sprint, and the vision, starting with the vision and empowering. Brilliant. I wonder, it is a great recipe. I know you're saying there aren't steps, but that is a great, those ingredients are fabulous. There's a couple of things I want to ask you on a personal level, because you've mentioned them, and I've got to ask you because I'm a nosy woman. What's it like working in Silicon Valley?
It's wonderful, actually. It's exhilarating. It's a fabulous community experience. I mean, when you really boil down Silicon Valley, it's a concept as much as a location. But there is a large area with about 6 to 8 million people, depending on how you define Silicon Valley. But we're all one big community. And in any given industry, whether it's software, whether it's AI, whether it's health, there's core groups of people that everyone knows everyone else. It really is one big collaborative community. Everybody is willing and interested in and committed to helping each other. Most people in Silicon Valley are non-natives. It's something like 95% of people in Silicon Valley today grew up somewhere else, either in another part of America or another country. So that by nature just makes us open to others. Everybody is curious about what somebody is working on, what you're doing, how can I help you? Yes, it's competitive, and yes, it's crowded, but it's competitive within the spirit of how can we all support each other to work together and build something, and then let's see where it goes.
And are you seeing more women getting involved in technology and innovation in Silicon Valley and generally?
We are, and I think it's partly because, no offense intended to men, but I think sometimes women tend to be more likely to be the open, curious, and brave. We tend to be willing to stick our neck out and take a risk for families, for things that are important to us, and now that's applied more and more to business. And I'm very pleased to see some of the various initiatives in Silicon Valley, like Watermark and some of the ASTIA that are accelerators for women, are really getting some very, very good traction. The younger generation women are also really driving that change. I mean, I'm so pleased with the uprising from Greta, for example. I mean, she's simply one example of somebody that's willing to get out there. And we're seeing that more with the new generations coming into the workforce in Silicon Valley. It's the women often are the leaders.
It's going to be interesting. So, I know you've lived a bit of a nomadic life. You've also shared that you've worked in many different countries. And it seems to me that more and more people are doing this as part of their life experience and their work.
Yeah.
What would you say are the advantages and disadvantages to not having sort of one home?
Yes, there's lots of advantages in that I really thrive on diversity. I love the fact in Europe, you can go in the course of a 6-hour train ride through 5 different environments and types of people. So I love the diversity. And based on just that, I mean, I don't think I could live 100% in only one place unless I traveled a lot. Today, I divide my time between Silicon Valley, where I have a home, as well as a base in Oslo, Norway, where I have an apartment. So I divide between the two, and extremely different cultures in all ways, But I find for me, it's a fabulous dichotomy in ways. I mean, Silicon Valley is all about energy and community and people and going and doing and 24/7 and constant activity. Also, Norway, much more relaxed, much more peaceful. Focus is on family, it's on being out in nature, enjoying life at a much lower pace. Crazy as it sounds, I sometimes get very bored if I'm based long in Oslo. I sometimes get very tired if I'm based a long time in Silicon Valley. So it's a strange balance between the two. I mean, the real challenge is, I mean, there are some things that that are just not possible. For example, I love animals. I would love to have a cat. That's just not really possible when you live in two places. So it's a trade-off always.
Yeah, absolutely. You'd have to sort of share your cat maybe with somebody else. Do that.
That has been suggested, actually. I may try it. The next time I'm on one of your events, I may share how that works out.
Yeah, fantastic. Brilliant. So obviously, you're a guest because you're one of our speakers on our roster. Mm-hmm. What are clients asking you to come and speak about when they invite you in? Because there's such a huge breadth of knowledge. What are you most asked for?
Yes, today it's more and more around how can we really apply innovation? How can we really get past the buzzwords and past all of the big stories and actually start doing something? The practical, how to take action to be that next Adobe or next Netflix success story. And that's for me what I really enjoy talking about. I can give examples, I can give stories, but I really like to share what can you actually start doing in your own environment to become that future-ready innovator yourself. Because I do believe everybody, in every chair in the organization, in every part of life, everybody can shift their mindset, become open, curious, and brave, and be highly successful in an unknown future. So that's what I really enjoy speaking about. I also enjoy speaking about just how do you grow and adapt your business in new markets, new cultures, new environments, which also comes down to starting to take the first step and moving forward.
So I'm going to ask you, because obviously we've talked about next step, we've talked about future, you're talking about first steps, we're talking about taking steps. What's your next step as my final question to you? What's next for you?
What I'm really looking forward to is working with your team and others around the world in order to really get my message out that anybody and everybody can be future ready. You can embrace and move forward in new ways. And I really, really enjoy sharing the experiences, the stories, the learnings, and learning real time, collectively with audiences and with folks. To me, the most important part of what I can bring as a legacy to this world is sharing my knowledge, but helping others to really move forward and do something with that knowledge. It's always great after a talk or a workshop to get the claps and the smile sheets. But what really motivates me is the times when I run into somebody on the bus, on the airplane, at the next conference who comes up and says, I remember when you spoke at Technoport 5 years ago and you gave these 3 action items. I actually did those things. And here's how it changed my life, my business, my relationships. That to me is what life is all about. So I'm looking very forward to more opportunities to achieve that and make a real difference to people.
That's lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.